I feel it in my bones, even when I move.
As of today, we are 14 days until the start of the 2020 to 2021 NBA season. For teams that went on deep playoff runs in the bubble, this will be the shortest off-season in recent memory. Then there are other teams that did not meet the requirements to enter the NBA bubble, so they haven't played meaningful, organized NBA basketball since March. During this shortened season, the NBA draft and the start of free agency happened within 2 days of each other, and during that span of time, trades were being formally agreed upon and conducted. So it feels like the makeup of teams throughout the league seemingly shifted overnight. Throughout the month of December, I will be previewing every NBA team before the first games on December 22nd, meaning I will be posting every day until the season kicks off. 30 teams in 21 days. The preseason preview series. Up next is the Atlanta Hawks. Last season, the Hawks posted a record of 20-47, positioning them as the 14th seed in the East, thus them missing the playoffs. Their top performers last year were Trae Young, John Collins, DeAndre Hunter, and Kevin Huerter. Besides them, their more interesting player is Cam Reddish. Last season, Trae Young put up about 30 points per game, 9 assists on 44% from the field, and 36% from 3 on 9.5 attempts per game. Trae Young was one of the most lethal offensive weapons in the entire league last year. His tremendous shooting ability from all spots, from the half-court logo, he's a threat. And his playmaking ability, the way he was able to find and basically pass teammates open last year, it was one of the best in the league. Last year, Trae Young struggled in terms of defense and taking care of the ball. He averaged 4.8 turnovers per game. Obviously, as the main ball handler, scorer, and facilitator for a team, you're going to get a lot of turnovers. But he's going to have to seek to improve his assist-to-turnover ratio to hopefully above 2-1. And then his defense. Trae Young is never going to be a great or good on-ball defender, but you can just hope that he can put up the effort on that end and just become a great team defender in terms of communication and rotating. And you would hope that he can get some timely off-ball steals as well to really improve his defensive impact. Last year, John Collins put up about 22 points per game, 10 rebounds, a block and a half on 58% from the field, and 40% from 3 on 3.6 attempts per game. Coming into this season, this is John Collins' contract year. And with the draft pick Atlanta made, there are rumors regarding whether this will be his last year in Atlanta. So I think this will really motivate him to compete and perform this year to really get a big time bag from a team if it isn't Atlanta. John Collins is another player on Atlanta with Trae Young who was great offensively, but the downsides of him come on the defensive end. John Collins, through his first 3 years in the NBA, hasn't been a great defender, and with the league getting smaller and smaller at each position and just more perimeter oriented, John Collins is going to be a player that most teams are going to want to play at center. And you can't really have a player who is a defensive liability at the center position if you really want to contend for a championship in the league. So really, John Collins is kind of in a weird position in Atlanta, especially with the center position being filled by Onyeka Okongwu and Clint Capella. It's looking like Atlanta is going to go away from John Collins at the center position for the future. So I don't know. John Collins is in a very weird position with Atlanta. We're going to have to monitor that throughout this regular season and then projecting in the 2021 offseason. Last year, DeAndre Hunter was a rookie. He put up 12 points per game, 4.5 rebounds on about 41% from the field, and 35.5% from 3 on 5 attempts per game. After last year, I don't really know what DeAndre Hunter's ceiling is. Is he a solid third option? Because there were plays last year where he scored off of his own creation, whether it was just a straight line drive to the rim or hitting a pull-up three-pointer or pull-up mid-range off of a pick and roll. I don't really know what his ceiling is on the offensive end. But the type of player that everybody projected DeAndre Hunter to be was a 3-and-D player. DeAndre Hunter, I think he was like the best defensive player coming out of last year's draft, and defense is really ideal to add with having Trae Young on your team and John Collins on your team. The three-point shot is really the only question mark, and he didn't shoot it very poorly last year. I think he was around league average, so you would assume that can continue to improve. And if so, this is a great player to have around Trae Young, somebody who can be a multi-positional defender. Last season, Kevin Huerter put up 12 points per game, 4 assists per game, on about 41% from the field and 38% from 3 on 6 attempts per game. Kevin Huerter is another member of this young core where I don't know what his ceiling is. He is a great marksman that can handle the ball a bit. He's a good passer. He boasted a 2.4 assist to turnover ratio, which was highest on the team among the core ball handlers on this team. And then Kevin Huerter might have some defensive potential. He's a 6'7" shooting guard who has great size, and that was shown in his ability to really disrupt things on the defensive end. He got about half a block per game, which is great for a shooting guard, and he got about a steal per game. So his defensive potential is really something that would allow the Hawks to play him with Trae Young on the same court at the same time. Cam Reddish, the most interesting player on this Atlanta team. Last season he put up 10.5 points, got about a steal a game on 38.4% from the field and 33.2% from 3. When you look at Cam Reddish's production, you can't really look at it on the season as a whole. You have to break it down by 2 halves. It was really a tale of 2 halves for Cam Reddish's rookie year. In the beginning of the year, Cam Reddish struggled. I mean, before the new calendar year, he didn't put up more than 10 points per game. He shot sub 36% from the field and sub 32% from 3, and his offensive rating was not great. But at the turn of the new calendar year, Cam Reddish was an entirely different player. He shot above 40% from the field for the first time of his career during January, and he even shot above 40% from three-point land in January, and his offensive rating was in the triple digits. And then in February and March, he continued to improve. And then in March, right before the hiatus, he put up 17.5 points per game on 55.1% from the field and 47.6% from 3 with an offensive rating of 109. From month to month, Cam Reddish continued to improve. Constant improvement throughout the year up until suspension. He came into the league with great potential as a two-way shot creating wing. He was kind of compared to Paul George at his ceiling, and that's kind of the perfect player to have on the perimeter with Trae Young. Somebody who can play off of the ball, who doesn't need the ball in his hands at all times to really be effective, but he's going to be a great perimeter defender as well. Cam Reddish has great size to really play on the perimeter. I think he's another 6'7" or 6'8" shooting guard. So yeah, Cam Reddish at his high, he really feels the need of types of players to have around Trae Young. But I mean, the question is, what Cam Reddish are we going to see in the 2020 season? Okay. Atlanta in the offseason, they had one of the more interesting offseasons in the entire NBA. They did not make any trades, but in the draft, they took Onyeka Okongwu. Now, I've already been talking about the needs on defense with this Atlanta Hawks team. It's not a secret, they need a lot of defensive help. But they drafted Okongwu to really play in a front court that is already loaded in Atlanta. Defensive needs, yes, Okongwu fills those. But I'm just saying, the fit is just really weird. It kind of blurs the lines for what they're going to do with John Collins. They traded for Capella throughout, well, I think it was right before the deadline last year. They already have this rim running center who's going to be good defensively. Okongwu is kind of a mirror of that, who has more potential, yes, but right now he's kind of a mirror of that. And you sign some other players that I'll talk about. Well, let's just talk about free agency signings right away. Their main signing was Danilo Gallinari, who is another player who plays in the front court, who has mainly been playing power forward for the past 2 or 3 years. Gallinari has gravitated to that power forward position and played it naturally. So now, with all of these players at the power forward and center position who you want to give minutes to, is Gallo going to go back to small forward? Or are you just going to play him at power forward and just jeopardize the minutes of your high-end number 1 pick? And then John Collins is still here. Is he going to play center and you're going to bring Capella off the bench? I don't know. This is really weird. It's going to be interesting to see how they manage all these minutes. They signed Bogdan Bogdanovic, who was a player who was on the trading block last season because of his emergence. He's a playmaking, shot-creating wing that was a great shooter last year, but this Atlanta Hawks team has so many young wings. I just talked about them. DeAndre Hunter, Kevin Huerter, and Cam Reddish, and you're bringing in Bogdan Bogdanovic, so managing those minutes are going to be interesting. They also brought in Rajon Rondo, my guy who won the championship with the Lakers last year. He's going to be a cool pickup, a veteran who can mentor Trae Young slightly, hopefully on the defensive end. But they also bring in Chris Dunn. Again, Atlanta needed defense, and they needed defense at the point guard position. You don't want 48 minutes of horrible defense at one position. So you play Trae Young at point guard for 36 minutes, and then you have Chris Dunn to really provide that defensive impact for the other 12 minutes. But then you have him and Rajon Rondo. You have two good backup point guards in the league, two of the best backup point guards in the league, let's be honest. Are you going to have enough minutes for them? Because again, you're playing Trae Young at least 36 minutes a game. That leaves 12 point guard minutes. There's not enough minutes for them at point guard, so they're going to definitely be playing a lot of minutes where Trae Young is going to be in the same backcourt as Chris Dunn at the same time. Chris Dunn is 6'3", so you're going to have a very, very, very small backcourt in Chris Dunn and Chris Dunn and Trae Young on the same court at the same time. So these minutes also are going to be very interestingly managed. So now we look at this personnel. At the guard positions, Trae Young, Kevin Huerter, Rajon Rondo, Chris Dunn, and Cam Reddish. At the forward, they have John Collins, Danilo Gallinari, Bogdan Bogdanovic, and DeAndre Hunter. At the center positions, they have Capella and Okongwu. All 11 players very deserving of minutes. You could argue all of these players are deserving of 18 minutes per game at least. And then coaching this team is Lloyd Pierce, who, I don't know. I think last year was his first season being a full-time head coach, and I didn't see enough Atlanta Hawks games to really get a feel for him as a head coach, so I'm not really going to provide an opinion on him. This starting lineup going into next season was extremely hard to project, but I'm going to try to do so anyway. Point guard, obviously Trae Young. Shooting guard, I'm going to say Kevin Huerter. I think they like the idea of playing him a lot of minutes and being a part of this young core. Small forward, Bogdanovic. They gave him a lot of money this off season, so I assume they really want to play him. Power forward, John Collins. He just came off of a 20 and 10 per game year last year, so you're not going to bring him off the bench, even though they drafted Okongwu at number 6 to address their defense. And then Clint Capella is a top third starting center in this league, so I assume you would start him again for defensive purposes. So yeah, that's going to be my estimated starting lineup for this team. I mean, it could go 1,000 other ways, but that's the one I'm going to say. They also have Danilo Gallinari, who I'm going to say is coming off the bench, even though they're paying him $20 million per year for the next 3 years. So paying that much for a bench player is just, I don't know. That's what makes this lineup so hard to project. I could easily see them starting him at power forward though, and then moving John Collins to center, and then bringing Capella off the... I don't know. I'm not going to think about it anymore. I estimate the Hawks' record to be about 35 and 37. The Hawks, their team is just so talented. They have a lot of talent on this team, mainly with the offseason adjustments they made. And the depth and talent, high end and low end, is just, it's vast. So I think that's really going to be why the Hawks improve this season to around 500. And I think they're going to get the 8th seed in the East. The 8th seed race isn't as competitive as it is in the West, so I definitely think a sub 500 team could get the 8th seed out East. You have 6 teams who are solidified playoff teams. In the Bucks, the Celtics, the Raptors, the Heat, 76ers, and Nets, and that leaves 2 more spots to make the playoffs. And I think 2 of these teams are going to make it. Hawks, Pacers, Magic, Wizards, so that's 4 teams. And I think the Hawks are going to be one of those teams that get either the 7th or 8th seed. They're going to get eliminated in the first round. They're probably going to be swept, let's just be honest. But playoff experience is very valuable for a young team, and very valuable for a player who you think can lead an NBA title contending team in the future. And that player for them is Trae Young. You're really going to be trying to get him in the playoffs from here on and here out, because you don't want a Devin Booker situation. The Hawks added a lot of talent through free agency. They had the most money to spend in an offseason where many teams were holding their checkbooks. Now on roster, Trae has additional snipers to space the floor for him in Bogdan and Gallo, who are also skilled enough to create some offense with the ball in their own hands. They added a pure point guard in Rajon Rondo to run the second unit and possibly mentor Trae. They also signed Chris Dunn to provide much needed defense in the backcourt. The drafting of Okongwu provides defensive help in the front court. Question that I have is, how will Lloyd Pierce disperse minutes to so many players that are deserving? Will fewer minutes for lottery picks Cam Reddish and DeAndre Hunter stunt their growth, especially with Cam, who was particularly finding his stride before the end of the season? Same goes with Kevin Huerter, who has been consistently improving every year, and with the Hawks drafting a defensive big man with John Collins entering his last year of his rookie deal, does that signify the end of his tenure in Atlanta? The acquisitions have created a lot of questions that the NBA world can only speculate on, but it cannot be denied how much better this team has become. They are now one of the deepest teams in the league. In my opinion, Atlanta has the potential to bolster the best scoring bench in the league and possibly be the best 3-point shooting team in the league. The Hawks have said they were serious about getting better immediately, and they've done so. With all of the weapons now at Trae Young's disposal, I think playoff basketball will be back in Atlanta in 2021.